She's senior this year. Oh, okay.
Ms. Cox, are you ready?
Okay.
Mr. Benson, you good? Ms. Golden, you ready?
Yes, yeah.
Dr. Cash, are you ready? Where's my gavel at? That's okay. We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order this evening. We want to thank you all for coming and welcome to the, I guess this is the July meeting of the Pulaski County School Board. The way this summer's gone, it's kind of hard to keep up with what day it is, what week it is, or what month it is. So we want to welcome everybody to our July meeting of the Pulaski County School Board. Before we get started, as is customary with the school board, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask our newly appointed principal, Pulaski County High School, Ms. Boland, if you'll lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Thank you. A few more folks out tonight than what we've had over the last couple months. I guess some folks are interested in if we're going to go back to school this year. So I'm sure that folks are here to hear the news about that as well. Before we get started, we'll start out with recognition of citizens. At this time, if anyone would like to come and address the board and present ideas or concerns regarding Pulaski County Public Schools, we'd be more than happy to hear from you at this time.
Dr. Sears, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I want to start off by saying thank you for allowing PCEA to be part of the task force for reopening schools. I know firsthand how much time consuming that was and how much thought and consideration was put into drafting our plan. Even with what I feel is the very best plan that's well thought out, Pulaski County Education Association members still have some concerns. With the cases rising nationally, statewide, and even locally, teachers and staff are growing more uncomfortable with the risk to our students, our community, our families, and ourselves as we venture into these uncharted territory. We did an informal survey of our members. We had almost 100 reply, and in the last 24 hours, our results showed that 56 identified as uncomfortable or very uncomfortable with the Pulaski County Public Schools plan to reopen schools. The concern is not only for safety, but the emotional toll on students faced with a new environment, unexplained absences, quarantining of a building, and asking them to behave in a manner that is contrary to their developmental stages and their socialization needs. Another pressing concern is how we'll react to staff absences from illness or quarantine, concerns about sick leaves, substitutes, the potential need to combine classes, teachers who are not ill but quarantined who will continue to teach online are all operational issues on the minds of teachers. I do appreciate and understand that we need a plan, and I also appreciate that the dialogue is not yet over. If we know anything about COVID-19, we know that things can change quickly and we all have to adjust. And I do just want to say thank you all very much for your thoughtful, honest, and serious concern for our students and staff safety when developing this plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you could talk loud, because the people on YouTube can't hear you.
Okay. Would anyone else like to address the board at this time? Mr. Chairman?
This is the proper place, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, it is.
Hey, we appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. First, Joe Guthrie from Dublin. Just want to say thank you to this board, to the high school administration, to the graduation committee for putting together the graduation for the students. This spring, I was delighted to be a part of that. Mr. Chairman, that's my 9th graduation in a row as an elected official. And all graduations are distinctive and unique in their own way. And this one, of course, more so than ever. But I'm sure it was appreciated by both the students and their parents. And our students got to get walk across the stage and get a diploma at the site. And that was much more than a lot of school districts were able to do. So we just want to extend a thanks from the county on that. Just a word about the upcoming school year. I have some concerns and some things that a lot of people have talked about as far as school enrollment goes and what that might look like in the coming year, particularly as Virginia looks like it might be different in some of its policies than some of our surrounding states, or as people look for alternatives. And with that in mind, I just ran an idea past some of our legislators about what we might do with school funding, ADM numbers, instead of the current year's ADM numbers, as last year's are probably more reflective of what our actual school population is and what our infrastructure is built for. Ran that by Nick Rush. He said he had the same idea independently and was willing to put that up as an amendment. He's happy to do so, and Ben Chafin showed great interest in it as well. So as you look at what your policies might be for the coming year and maybe your legislative agenda, something where we can do some things to help to make sure that we've got the state funding from the state that we need, and maybe some changes caused by this. And the real reason that I'm mostly here tonight is because I know on your agenda you've got a couple of items and action items that concern the county. The other is about the CIP. Of course, we passed the CIP at the Board of Supervisors meeting at our June meeting. It is a joint resolution, so you're considering it tonight. Has been slightly revised, but it's the same idea as what we discussed at our retreat, and same idea as what we talked about for some period of time, that that there would be 3 revenue streams, one from carryover funds, another from retired debt, and a third, we hope, from cigarette tax,
right,
that we could all dedicate to that. The language in it has been revised somewhat by the 2 staffs. I think it's acceptable to the Board of Supervisors. As written, just provides a little bit more flexibility than what ours was written up as. But again, I'll just be here this evening as a resource if needed on any of those items.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Would anyone else like to address the board at this time? If not, we will have another public comment section toward the end of our meeting. Brings us to item C on the agenda, the approval of minutes. The board earlier received copies of minutes from our June the 14th meeting. Are there any corrections or comments concerning the minutes of our June 14th meeting? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the June 14th meeting? The June 9th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our June 9th meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 9th, 2020 meeting.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Brings us to the item D, the adoption of the agenda. The board earlier received a copy of the agenda for this evening's meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
A second.
Mrs. Porter?
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
The personnel changes are up on this screen at this time. You also have a copy, I believe, in your packet. As well as the school activity fund audit engagement letter. A copy of that was in your packet as well. Are there any questions or comments concerning the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Motion has been made by Dr. Cash. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Porter?
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Brings us to instructional focus. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Dr. Sears.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll ask that Ms. Atkinson, our CCD director, to come forward, and she will be presenting both of the instructional focus items this evening.
Forgive me, I'm used to having a podium to work off. So the first instructional item that we wanted to share was actually a community service project that was put together by our Skills USA chapter. They had to, for their state competition, decide on an issue that they thought was important for the Pulaski County community. And when they went out and looked for how they could help, they realized that we had backpack programs at the elementary school and at the middle school to send food home with students, and that it wasn't happening at the high school. And they decided that that was something that they wanted to tackle. So they went through the entire process of identifying the problem, coming up with a solution. They interviewed the elementary school personnel that ran those programs. They reached out to some other local communities that ran high school programs and designed their high school backpack program. So from start to finish, they put it into operation at the beginning of the spring semester. They wrote up a report and they presented it at the Skills USA state competition, where they were awarded a gold award for this project. So they will continue this in the next few years and are looking at ways to expand. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that our students are being very civic-minded and coming up with problems that they see and finding ways to tackle them. I think you go through some of the pictures. And you know that I am not good with the clickers, so please. But these are our officers collecting food and putting them in the various backpacks. They were very intentional in finding backpacks that didn't stand out, because one of the problems that they identified with high schoolers not taking food home was the stigma and being made fun of. So they used the resources with the Army recruiters and got the drawstring backpacks that they were giving out to every student.
Nice.
So if a student took home one of those backpacks, they would look no different than a student who had talked to one of the recruiters during lunch.
Cool.
And this is our officer team at state competition. The second instructional focus actually relates to an award that was given to Pulaski County from the Department of Education. Our culinary arts teacher, Mrs. Norris, nominated the Pulaski County Office of Economic Development as a community partner for the Creating Excellence Award for Career and Technical Education. The Office of Economic Development very regularly contracts the culinary arts program to run receptions and meals for prospective businesses that are looking to make Pulaski County their home. And one of the things that we found out through our Department of Education audit was that that doesn't happen in other parts of the state. This is a very innovative partnership. So our culinary arts students benefit from this partnership because they get real world experience. They are catering an event that is a corporate event. They're getting workplace readiness skills. They see the value of going after that Serve Safe Manager certificate because they're going through these receptions. And then in turn, the Office of Economic Development gets to showcase the educational program that's offered here in Pulaski County. And so prospective businesses get to see who we are and what we do. So we're going to bring that certificate to the Office of Economic Development tomorrow. But I wanted to make sure that you knew that we still have really, really cool, innovative things happening here in Pulaski County.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Atkinson.
Thank you.
When you see Mr. Solomon tomorrow, tell him that you understand that Timmy Hurst is a better golfer than he is. Yeah, we played in the chamber tournament together, and I'm bad, but he's terrible. He's not playing too much golf. I'll say that. Apparently, he's working. So,
I'll see if I can get him to watch the video tonight.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. More information items. Let's get an update on this middle school that looks like we've got some sod going down and some trees and some good things happening.
There are, as is quite evident to everybody from the outside, a lot of changes happening, positive changes. Sod being one, asphalt being another, and go through this. All right. Excellent. So on the agenda, construction schedule, budget, and progress studies. So for the early grading package, Branch Civil has returned back on site. You may have seen some heavy equipment down there, reworking the areas. They returned on site, began final seeding, and we'll still have to apply the infill conditioner. And BCI has been correcting a lot of the grade issues that arose through the winter. That's what they brought the heavy equipment in for. For the general construction package, the roofing for all areas are complete except for the two vestibules in there, almost complete. They have a different roof, so I'm standing seam roofing. The concrete placement for sidewalks is continuing, which I'm sure you've seen a lot of those happening on. The roofer is continuing on the metal wall panels and metal fascia. I believe that's got one more piece to go, and that'll be complete. The fiber for the building is progressing. Everything is run into the building at this point in time. They just need to terminate the fiber. Verizon has already installed the telephone line to the building. The steel contractor is near complete on installing all the handrails throughout the building. The rooftop units for the remaining areas, as we talked about before, the classroom areas have been started up in the gymnasium. The remaining units to be brought online to start conditioning the building as all exterior doors have been put on. So the painters are continuing throughout the building with their painting various areas. The interior wall stud framing for area F, classroom and area A are progressing. The sprinkler rough ends are complete and heads are being installed for those as we bring in laying ceilings also. The electrical contractor continues with the overhead and all rough ends and site power line progressing. Mechanical contractors installing ductwork in area A and F. F is nearly complete, which would be the fume hoods was all that was left for those. The VCT flooring is continuing throughout the admin area. Site contractors final grading and topsoiling, and in addition the sod is being made. The heavy duty pavement on the bus loop started with the base. You'll see all the trucks paper down there. Light fixtures for the classroom areas are complete. Kitchen equipment installed and timings are progressing. Storefront frames glazing area A and C are progressing. Casework in the classroom wings is progressing. A lot of the science classrooms are now complete in there, and also casework and facts, which I have a picture of that going right along. Plumbing fixtures are being installed throughout the building. The bleachers for the gyms are in progress. At this point in time, almost all the bleachers for the main are in, and then the auxiliary gym will be next. The acoustical ceiling grid is being installed in AC and F areas. The connector road heavy duty pavement has also started, though that'll be completed should be by tomorrow. Skanska provided QA services on site, continues to conduct various meetings. The design team continues to provide CA services, and FNR provided testing and inspection services. For the early grading package, final completion will be this summer. Should be very, very soon. There's really not much left on it. The general construction package at this time is still set for July of 2020, which is this month. There are some dates that are working with the general contractor and tightening those up and finalizing those. The total project budget is $46,888,376. The development of FF&E scope and budget is continuing, though very near complete. And here we have some progress photos. So that's the front entrance, and you can see the brick pavers were installed, set in the concrete there. They got all that grouted up.
If you'll remember Jess and Mr. Barber nearly came to blows over those pavers.
Yeah, Jess is a big, fan of the
Mr. Barber
pavers.
wanna-
I don't think it really was blows. I think it was more like, I really don't want them, and you're gonna take them.
They look nice.
They do.
Yeah, they look nice. Stand out.
So this is the facts. You can see the casework there. The hood over on to the left of the photo is where the residential range will be. Hood on the right is where the commercial range will be. Here's the auditorium as it's still progressing. You can see the land ceiling is in, also along the acoustical baffles. Behind me in this picture, the acoustical treatment is on the walls already.
That's changed a great deal in the last 2 weeks.
It really has.
Yeah.
It's coming together.
Were these pictures from today?
Actually, that one's from yesterday.
Okay, that is much further along than it was on Friday.
Yeah, they're moving, and even today, if you look, there's 2 speakers that aren't installed that were installed this afternoon. So it's moving very quickly. I tried to hold off on sending this so I can get, because it is moving so fast, so you can literally see what the progress is. As I say, just about it was a week ago that she sent that. So this is the light monitor finishes, so you can see the laying will be laid in this Saturday, this Friday. We have an inspection for the above ceiling. Will go in there, and you can see the lights up in the light monitor, and then baffles will come down from there to guide the light down to the spaces. And this is the athletic floor. Unfortunately, I did not get a good picture of the bleachers until today, so it's sans bleachers. But I do have one now. I did it today. I was hoping to have that included. And this is the start of the asphalt around the back, so that's where ag and STEM are located, and then you can see the topsoil that they're bringing in, and they'll clean that up with any larger stones and debris and whatnot before laying the sod. And this is where the lockers were installed in the classroom wing, so I'm standing in a collaboration space, kind of trying to show both floors. And even that's moved faster now. The hand railing is actually all been painted. Very good picture today. I wish I would have loved to have included. That showed a lot more of it painted out. Show you the colors with the handrails. But
I like the overhead color in the upper level. That's the ceiling.
yeah, and it changes between each wing. They flip flop.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
That's great. That's exciting, Dan. It's always something we look forward to seeing. And things are going really well at the school. It's exciting. It's I know once we get the calendar items, we got some tours that we're going to try to plan for the opening of the school, and so that the community can see what they're getting for their investment. And I firmly believe everybody's going to be very pleased. So thank you again, Mr. Siegel.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Brings us to operations, Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'll be brief. I can't remember the numbers. 90. All right, the open work order report is at 90. To be perfectly frank, I expect that to grow and grow significantly. Our maintenance and custodial staff are doing many other things right now. We are preparing to move into the new school. We consolidated both middle schools down to the lower levels in preparation to move. We are also maintenance. We're going around and installing a lot of the things that have to happen before we reopen for the COVID-19, the sneeze guards out on the front and things of that nature. So we're not doing work orders as much as we normally would. So, and we probably won't be doing work orders as much as we normally would over the next couple months. So, you know, the next couple months, if that number grows, don't be alarmed. We'll get it back down. So that's where we stand with the work order report. Transportation wise, I think everybody who participated in the task force understands what transportation's been doing the last few months. We've been trying to figure out how to get the kids to school under the new guidelines. So that's what we've been working towards. And then custodial, we did get a jump on cleaning the buildings because we came back early and started cleaning, so we got that out of the way, but we're preparing to, with the custodial staff open under the new guidelines and restrictions. That's really all I have for an operations update. You guys have any questions?
How many bus drivers do we need in addition to what we already have?
To run which scenario?
Start with phase 3 and then phase 2.
Well, running the generalized routes, I think we're gonna be okay. I think we're gonna be all right. We had, 2 resignations of bus drivers this week. Two, and one didn't pass his physical. Okay, so we're down 3, but we hired 1, so we did get 1 back, so.
So we brought 2 substitutes in.
So whenever we go back to regular routes, I may have a better grasp, but running the generalized routes with the buses following each other, I think we'll be able to cope.
Custodial staff?
I think I'm 6 down.
Oh.
7. We have 1 come in and retire today. I got an interview scheduled for tomorrow, but I think I only have 3 applicants. So I think we're interviewing all 3. And if they can 3, we'll hire.
Okay, well, thank you. I know you're working many hours.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you.
The SBA policy updates, Sears.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the board was sent copies of recommended policy updates from the SBA, and they are now available on board docs for anyone in the public who would like to look at them. We will have them as an action item for next month.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move to calendar items.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have reopening public schools webinar that several of us from the board office will be putting together and delivering on Thursday afternoon. We realize that folks will probably be tuning in today to hear the plan, but it's difficult to see the plan or to really engage with the plan in this format. So we're going to do it through a webinar and have the people who are actually be involved in establishing the procedures that help support the outline of the plan that we are going to present tonight. They will be the ones presenting on Thursday. Then we have our school board meeting on August 11th. We have tentatively scheduled the Pulaski County Middle School ribbon cutting ceremony for 3 p.m. on Thursday, September 17th. And that will be followed by an open house for parents and students from 4 to 7:30. And then on Friday, September 18th, we would have an open house for the public from 2 to 6 p.m. And Mrs. Smith said those dates work well for them. Were they all right with you, Jess? And I'll jump ahead of myself, but just because we haven't discussed it yet, but just for those who don't know, because of the COVID outbreak at the work site, construction is about 2 weeks behind. So our plan will include having the middle school students show up here at Pulaski County High School to be issued their Chromebooks and materials they need, but they will be spending the first 2 weeks in all virtual learning so that we can make sure we have a completed school to move them into. I think the first official day there will be September 21st, so the Monday following these open houses. Do the dates and times work for the board members, or do we need to look at other dates and times?
I'm perfectly fine.
We're fine.
I'm fine with them. How do we maintain social distancing with these?
What we will probably have to do, the current guidelines under phase 3 allow us to do 250. So that's probably doable quite easily by spreading people out in the different grade level wings. If we're under stricter guidelines at that point, we will probably just have to schedule tours that are led by a faculty and staff member of the school and only allow so many in each tour group and go through the school with, maybe every 15 minutes we start a new tour with up to 10 people if we were back under phase 2 guidelines by that point.
Another question, I guess directed towards Jess maybe. after a Friday evening event for the public between that time and
I was just
Monday.
gonna request if we do the 16th and 17th for the 2 dates, would that be all right? Instead of the 17th and 18th, so that I can clean the building really well.
Yeah, that was my
Friday.
question.
Yeah.
How you gonna clean before the kids?
Instead of having to bring them in on Saturday and Sunday and clean it before Monday.
That works for me.
It's fine, sure.
Was that where you were going with your question?
Cleaning, yeah.
Yeah, I thought. I had the same question I was gonna ask.
Dr. Sears, I will do my level best to make those dates. My fall schedule is in question right now. Where I'm gonna be teaching, who I'm gonna be teaching, which county I'm gonna be in.
Would it help if we pushed the back to forward, like ribbon cutting?
No,
Okay.
it's gonna depend on, how many classes I'm teaching for Radford University, teaching their developmental students, and how many, where New River and Radford put me,
Okay.
basically, and when, and how, and nice surprise, I think it'll be. But I'll try. I will definitely, I'll try.
Hope you can make it. You can make it. We need to make the ribbon big enough and have enough pair of scissors so that we can all keep a small piece of the ribbon. Yeah, so that'd be nice.
And spread out.
6 feet between everyone.
Okay, 6 feet of ribbon.
350 feet of ribbon.
All right, brings us to action items. The first item on our agenda tonight is a resolution naming the Pulaski County Middle School, our new middle school library, after a longtime educator here in Pulaski County, an administrator here in Pulaski County, that spent his life helping kids. So I believe to present the resolution tonight, I believe Mr. Stafford is going to read the resolution. Didn't see you
Yes, sir.
behind
I
the.
think we're trying to preserve Dr. Sears' voice for the reopening plan, so he delegated me to read this, and I'm honored to read this tonight. Resolution of the Pulaski County School Board recognizing and honoring the life of Joseph E. Reed. Whereas Joseph L. Wood Reed passed away on November 5th, 2017, and whereas Joseph was a product of Pulaski County Public Schools, having attended the Calfee Training School in Pulaski, Virginia, and whereas Joseph was a career educator for Pulaski County Public Schools, having worked as a classroom teacher at Dublin Middle School and administrator at Northwood Elementary School, Dublin Primary School, Newbern Elementary School, Fairlawn Cooperative Transition Program, Pulaski Middle School, and Pulaski County High School for 47 years. And whereas Joseph served the Pulaski County community throughout his life as a member of the Board of Directors of the Fine Arts Center of the New River Valley, member of the Pulaski County Chamber of Commerce Community Attitude Quality of Life Committee, member of the New River Community College Board of Directors, Vice Chairman of the Town of Pulaski Recreation Commission, Chairman of the Pulaski County Library Board, President of the Pulaski County Branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and Chairman of the Emergency Needs Task Force. And whereas Joseph also served his community through providing numerous hours of volunteer service at the Ratcliffe Transportation Museum, sponsoring the Black History Club at Pulaski County High School, mentoring young men and women in the community, and personally purchasing and donating numerous books to promote literacy for students attending schools where he worked. And whereas the Pulaski County School Board joins Joseph's many friends and family in mourning the passing of a lifelong community and educational leader, and wishes to honor his numerous contributions to Pulaski County and Pulaski County Public Schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved the Pulaski County School Board, in grateful appreciation of the life of Joseph L. Wood Reed and his innumerable positive contributions that improved life for generations of Pulaski County students, does hereby state that the Media Center Library on the campus of Pulaski County Middle School shall now and forever be named the Joseph E. Reed Media Center, so that Joseph's name will always hereafter be known to every student of Pulaski County Public Schools and associated with their pursuit of the knowledge and skills necessary to lead successful and productive lives. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread on the minutes of the Pulaski County School Board as testament to the life and contributions of Joseph Elwood Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Stafford. Such a difficult time to provide the appropriate recognition that you would love to provide at this time. When we have the ribbon cutting for the school, I'm sure Jess, I know that the name Joseph Reed will be placed above the library there at the Media Center at the school. And we would certainly love to have Mr. Reed's family present at that time to make sure that we have the appropriate pictures and the appropriate recognition that he certainly deserved and the family deserves. At this time, I believe we have some family members here. So if you would like, if we could at least have you come down and we can get a picture in front of maybe the Mr. Stafford, do you have your camera with you?
Sure do.
We just like to thank the community and the teachers, co-workers, and of course the school board. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Thank you, Ashley. Well, the school board has heard the resolution. Are there any comments or? Hearing none at this time, if we could, is there a motion to approve the resolution as read, naming the Media Center at the new Pulaski County Middle School after Joseph E. Reed?
I move that we approve the resolution.
The motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Ms. Golden,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst.
Yes.
Mr. Benson,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Dr. Hatch.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. That brings us to the community eligibility provision. I believe we have Ms. Sadler to present to us this evening for that.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Sears, and member of the school board. Last month, I gave you information about the community eligibility provision that I'm recommending for our school division. Before you make your decision, I would just like to say that to make this community eligibility provision successful for our division and for our students, I request the support of our administrators, our teachers, our parents, and our students to participate in the meal programs. Furthermore, considering the reopening of schools with the complexity of the meal service that we're looking at, with the community eligibility provision in place, it will simplify the process somewhat because all the students will be claimed the same and the service lines will move along at a faster pace.
Right.
So I have been in meetings with different directors from other divisions, and they're really struggling concerning how they're going to collect funds from full price students, reduced price students. And I know that community eligibility, it does have a negative side to it because it does attest to the high poverty rate in our district. But at the same time, it provides opportunity for us to serve more of our students' meals. And we hope that they all will take advantage of this service that we do provide. And I would be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
I think we've had a month to,
Yeah.
go ahead, Dr.
I
Cassidy.
just have one.
Yeah.
You have told us in the past that the schools where this has been implemented, you have seen the participation in breakfast and lunch increase, correct?
That's correct.
I think we can all agree that a fed child is a child that is ready to learn and ready to participate in sports and class and everything else. So I thank you for Ms. Sadler for doing this. This is a great boon for our students and our parents.
I think right now is the best time for us to implement something like this.
This, of course, came to our board last month as an information item, so we've had a month to consider this, and certainly appreciate the presentation again this evening from Ms. Sadler. Is there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, is there a motion concerning the community eligibility program?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve and accept the community eligibility provision as presented by Ms. Sadler.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Porter?
Ms. Golden,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Benson,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Dr. Cash.
Yes.
That brings us to item 3 our action items, and that's dealing with some mobile classroom units at Dublin Middle School, I believe. Dr. Sears? Mr. Stafford?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Porter? Anybody else want?
Mr. Chairman and members of the school board, as you know, we have now closed both of their Pulaski Middle School and Dublin Middle School. Well, there's been a request made by the Building Bridges Child Development Center to the Pulaski County requesting a donation of 2 of the 3 mobile units, classroom units, located at the Dublin Middle School campus. These are owned by the Pulaski County Public Schools or Pulaski County School Board. Of course, we have not yet begun the process of surplusing, going through all of the items contained within both middle schools, but there has been, due to the child care situation of the county, there's been a request from the county that we would consider expediting this process. When we received the request, I knew that we would have to kind of navigate because of the state code and our current school board policy. So a school board can declare real property, real estate surplus, and it would go directed to the county. However, that doesn't apply to personal property. The code and our school board policy states that we can sell personal property in a manner in terms that we deem proper. So we do have to sell it. We can do that for nominal value, such as $1. So that would we could do that. We don't have the authority to make gifts or donations as a school board. Our policy states that for items with value in excess of $500, there must be a formal authorization for a negotiated sale or putting the items to bid, which is what we customarily do with our surplus property. We put it on GovDeals, which is a government website for surplus property. However, given that we would be doing neither, our attorney has advised us that in order to transfer this or sell it to the county for $1, you would need to vote to waive the school board policy in this case in order to sell them directly to the county for $1. Given that we have no plans for these mobile units, they're approximately 20 years old, and recognizing the shortage of child care services in Pulaski County, that is our recommendation tonight. And then there's a motion drafted by our attorney as to how we could proceed with this.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Stafford?
Who's gonna move them?
And it should, not sure if I had this in this or not, but the responsibility and cost of removal of those units would be borne by either building surplusing and selling the mobile units we had at Dublin Elementary School several years ago. Is that the cost of removal actually greatly exceeds the value of those units.
We went through, many links to get rid of those at Dublin Elementary. So this can be expedited and can in any way assist with the child care desert that we have in this county. Certainly in favor.
Any other comments? The board has heard the recommendation from our school board office. The recommendation comes with the motion would require that the school board would waive the requirements set forth under school board policy DN and sell the mobile classroom units to Pulaski County for the purchase price of $1. That would need to be included in the motion. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make that motion.
Okay. Dr. Cash has made the motion to waive the requirements set forth in school board policy DN, sell the mobile classroom units to Pulaski County for the purchase price of $1. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Bill, you were slow. On the second. Ms. Golden beat you. Mrs. Porter.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Stafford. I believe you're probably still up. That brings us to surplus property for the two middle schools.
Yes, sir. So, of course, as I mentioned, our policy states that if for any items valued in excess of $500, that we ask formal authorization for any surplus items. And we will be, as soon as we move into the new middle school, starting that process of trying to basically inventory everything that we have and beginning to list them and sell those as surplus property. This includes property such as classroom furniture, desks, chairs, instructional equipment, kitchen equipment, and many other types of items. As I mentioned before, a preferred method of putting surplus property to bid is to list those items on govdeals.com. Due to the volume of surplus items in these two middle schools, at the two old middle schools, we are asking the school board, and we've got this from our attorney, to vote tonight to authorize school staff to auction off those items individually or in lots where applicable in a competitive manner consistent with policy DN. And we would be happy to compile and report all those items to you and what the proceeds were, but rather than try to do this on a monthly basis and show you all these different items or lots, in many cases, we would ask that you would give us a broad authorization to begin that process.
Sure.
I will state that it is their intention that all the personal property housed at these two old middle schools will be sold publicly or transferred to another school if it's usable, and we would not be doing any further requests for any donations or transfer to any governmental entities. And all the proceeds from the sale of this property would benefit Pulaski County Public Schools.
The board has heard the recommendation concerning the surplus at the two middle schools. What's the board's desire?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Pulaski County School Board authorize school staff to auction off all surplus property from Dublin Middle School and Pulaski Middle School individually or in lots in competitive matter consistent with policy DN.
The motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
There we go. There we go. Mrs. Porter?
Ms. Gold,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Benson,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Dr. Cash,
Yes.
I just want to know who is going to, take care of this large yard sale.
I think we have two,
Yeah.
Jess, you have nothing better to do, right?
Do
we've
we-
already started. We've
Yeah.
already started locking and sorting, and anything we get a jump on, we got a jump on.
I don't envy that.
And thanks to, Dr. Cash, your, what's the term of the kids that New River sent me?
The ACE kids.
The ACE kids.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wore those kids out for a week.
Thank you. That's,
They hated me by Friday.
yeah, that's a very good partnership, yes, thank you. And I think the county also helped you with getting the ACE kids. Thank you.
Raj was one of the students just wore out.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I would have enjoyed seeing that. I would have,
Trust me, it's when I go sign the paperwork, I got a disgusting look.
yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I would have enjoyed that.
Are you trying to deter them from your?
That brings us to a joint resolution. Dr. Sears, will you be presenting this or?
No, Mr. Stafford.
Okay, he's going to be doing that as well. Okay.
You swear me out with resolutions tonight, and I'm glad to read this. Of course, this is as Mr. Guthrie mentioned earlier, a resolution that's been largely already approved by the Pulaski County Board of Supervisors and has been discussed at previous meetings and at the retreat earlier in the year. And I will read this for you tonight. Joint resolution of the Pulaski County Board of Supervisors and the Pulaski County School Board providing a funding plan for the capital needs of Pulaski County School Division. Whereas it is the continuing commitment of the Pulaski County Board of Supervisors to support the public education system of Pulaski County for the good of the community and their citizens, and to collaboratively foster a 21st century learning environment worthy of our students and teachers. And whereas the Pulaski County School Board and the Pulaski County Board of Supervisors mutually acknowledge and respect the differing roles they each play with respect to the facility and capital needs of the Pulaski County Public School Division, with the school board having the responsibility of prioritizing the capital needs and seeing to their completion, and with the Board of Supervisors bearing the responsibility of providing the funding necessary for the school board to engage in their prioritized capital projects. And whereas the Pulaski County School Board has identified certain capital improvement needs within their school division and have developed a capital improvement plan, CIP, prioritizing capital projects with estimation of their project costs. And whereas the Pulaski County School Board provides their CIP to the Board of Supervisors each year for funding consideration above and beyond their annual operation budget request. And whereas both boards find it challenging to identify and dedicate the amount of funds necessary to complete the prioritized projects within the CIP, and since 2013 have utilized a policy to capture and carry over unspent funds from the school board's annual operational budget for the restricted use of funding capital projects. And whereas the size and cost of the CIP has grown to 58 projects totaling $16,441,298 and requires a stronger partnership by both boards to conduct a higher level of planning and take a more strategic financial approach to adequately fund the school board's CIP and complete its prioritized project. Now therefore be it mutually resolved that the Pulaski County Board of Supervisors and the Pulaski County School Board do hereby agree to the following approach to fund the school board's capital improvement plan. The Board of Supervisors will continue the policy of utilizing any unused funds from the school board's annual operational budgets to be carried over and restricted for use on the school board's prioritized capital improvement projects identified within its CIP. With the help of the Commissioner of Revenue, the Board of Supervisors will identify, encumber, and annually appropriate any and all revenues received from cigarette taxes collected by the county for the assigned use of prioritized capital projects within the school board's CIP. The Board of Supervisors will identify and earmark portions of future school debt retirement from the Snowball and Kreiser Elementary School debt, the Pulaski County High School debt, the Pulaski Elementary School debt, the Dublin Elementary School debt, and the Riverlawn Elementary School debt to be encumbered, assigned, and appropriated for prioritized capital projects within the school board's CIP. The amount to be encumbered, assigned, and appropriated will be based on the final year amount of the debt service retired. The school board shall use its best efforts to utilize the allocated funds for the purpose of the school board's prioritized capital projects within the school board CIP, but also recognizing the uncertainty of the future, the school board may utilize the allocated funds for other more urgent capital projects within its discretion. The school board will strive to complete the prioritized capital projects within the school board CIP utilizing the funding sources identified in this resolution. The school board will strive to utilize the allocated capital funds enumerated in this resolution and/or the school operating budget in any combination for school bus purchases based on budgetary conditions and at the school board's sole discretion. Adopted by the Pulaski County Board of Supervisors this 22nd day of June 2020 in the county of Pulaski, Virginia. Adopted by the Pulaski County School Board this 14th day of July 2020 in the county of Pulaski, Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Stafford. Are there any questions or comments for either Mr. Stafford or maybe Mr. Guthrie? I will say this. Over the last several years in my time on the board, as well as I'm sure Mr. Guthrie's time on the board and the Board of Supervisors, as Mr. Sheffy's time on the Board of Supervisors, capital needs is always a challenging issue for both boards, always a challenging issue for both boards. And with the upcoming retiring debt services that we have here in Pulaski County, it created a real opportunity to make a difference in capital improvement. I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for recognizing that and hearing, of course, the citizens of Pulaski County when we went through the referendum process of building a new middle school. The citizens told us, take care of the schools you have. Make sure you do that. So we certainly owe it to the citizens to take care of the schools that we have. So I want to thank, again, the Board of Supervisors for their work with this, as well as the school board. And we finally, after a long period of time, have a true capital needs funding plan in place here in Pulaski County. So that it's certainly a success for both boards, certainly a success for both boards. The board has heard the resolution. If there's no other comments or question, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the resolution and am so excited, I'm going to ad-lib here, about the partnership between the Board of Supervisors and the school board. And thank you so much for moving us forward, Mr. Guthrie.
The motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
That was quick. Mrs. Porter.
Mrs. Gold,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Benson,
Yes.
Mrs. Cox,
Yes.
Dr. Cash.
Yes.
Well, that brings us to an interesting subject for tonight, and that's a school reopening plan. Would everybody like to take a recess at this time? I'm just kidding.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm trying to respond. We have been getting question after question after question, and I'm trying to let people know if they want it read publicly to please note on there that they want it read publicly, because a lot that we have being mentioned here seems to be conversations between parents. And we very well may be here till 11 or 12 tonight if we start trying to read each comment. But for some reason, it's not sending the message through. Okay, let me pull up the plan. Each school board member has a copy of the PowerPoint. So would it be okay if we turn this around so everyone out there could see it? Okay, I would ask those who are watching on YouTube, if there are questions or comments that you would like read at the end of the meeting, please note on there, read publicly on your post. And those will be the ones that I read at the end of the meeting. And I will not be reading the personal comments that are going back and forth between the folks who are viewing this. Okay. We have been tasked by the state Virginia Department of Education with coming up with our health plan and our instructional plan to enter back into school for the 2020-2021 school year. So we started out by establishing two objectives. Our first objective is to develop a COVID-19 mitigation health plan for opening schools under Phase 2 and Phase 3 guidelines, and that is due to the Virginia Department of Education tomorrow. We also had an objective to develop an instructional plan for reopening under Phase 2 and Phase 3 that incorporates appropriate health and safety guidelines, transportation with social distancing, instructional programming, assessments, and additional services for students. And that plan is due to VDOE 15 days before the first day of school. The steps we took to develop the plan: we formed a task force that was made up of teachers, parents, students, counselors, administrators, school board members, and school board office administrators to discuss various strategies for reopening schools. We received input from Dr. Noel Bissell, the director of the New River Health District, on various mitigation and social distancing strategies that should be considered when developing the Pulaski County Public Schools plan. We also conducted a survey of students, parents, and faculty and staff. And we developed the Pulaski County Virtual Academy to provide distance learning courses for students whose parents are not yet ready for them to return to face-to-face instruction. And I would really like to stress that point, because I know from reading the comments, there are many parents who are concerned about their kids returning, and please know that you are welcome to enroll them in the Virtual Academy, and we will work to get our courses set up in there that will be comparable to what they would have received in school. And we fully understand and support any parent who makes that choice to have their students stay in the Virtual Academy. We're having technical difficulties, apparently. Sorry.
Those never happen in the virtual academy.
No.
Never have. move forward.
I think we just need to go on. If you have a cell phone and can access pcva.us, you can pull up this PowerPoint as we go through it. Okay, we surveyed our parents and we developed the Pulaski County Virtual Academy. I'm going to quickly go through the survey results for the plan. For our preferred model for reopening, as you can see, the top preference for students, parents, faculty, and staff was return to face-to-face for 4 days per week. But it is worth noting that a majority of faculty and staff wanted a face-to-face model that was less than 4 days a week. Even though a plurality wanted the 4 days a week, a majority did want less. This was a statistic that was of concern. Thoughts on wearing a mask when social distancing can't be maintained. 30% of our students, and these were all Pulaski County high school students, were opposed to wearing masks. 28% of parents were opposed to wearing masks, and 9% of our faculty and staff were opposed to wearing masks. And I'll just say up front, for this plan to work, masks have to be mandated. We're not going to get into the political side of things. I realize it's a political hot button issue. That is not what we're about. We're about educating students and doing that as safely as possible. So we're going to follow the science. And when masks have to be worn, they have to be worn. It's not going to be negotiable. So if parents or students or faculty and staff have an issue with wearing the mask, you need to be upfront about that at the beginning, and we will come up with alternate arrangements for students to be educated and for faculty and staff to work. But the mask cannot be negotiated. Parents only, how difficult it will be for your family to find appropriate childcare during intermittent shutdowns. As you can see, about 30% are going to have a difficult time finding childcare during intermittent shutdowns. The comfort level with online learning, this one was one that surprised us a little bit because the parents seemed to be a little more comfortable with online learning than the students were, with 41% of our students having some degree of discomfort with it, and about 33% of our parents. Close contact with high-risk individuals. Parents say about 44% of their families are in contact with high-risk individuals. The high school students said about 51% of them are in contact. But the next slide is why I say we have to emphasize the mask. We have 17% of our faculty and staff are in a high-risk category, and 44% are in regular contact. So 61% of our faculty and staff are either in a high-risk category or in contact with someone in a high-risk category. And we can't negotiate the health and safety of our faculty and staff. If we're going to make this plan work, we have to do everything that we possibly can to ensure the safety of everyone who is coming to school each day. Daily health screenings. We're going to be asking parents to do a pre-screening before they send the student to school. And so we ask how difficult would it be to find childcare if your student is displaying symptoms. 83% said they have a plan. They can keep students at home, but 17% don't really have a plan as to how they could keep students at home. Faculty and staff, we asked that question a little differently, whether they would prefer to do self-screenings or have someone do the screening for them, and 58% said they would rather have someone else do their screening. internet access for at-home learning. We have 87 to 90% of our students and parents said they do have sufficient access, but keep in mind this was a survey that was done online. We know from the end of the semester last year, we had approximately 30% of our families requesting that paper packets be sent to them. So the true number is going to be somewhere between 10 and 30%. And we have some steps in our plan to work with families who do not have sufficient internet access to help them try to get that so that we can work the distance learning component into this plan. The faculty and staff, 85% said they have sufficient internet for providing instruction from home, and 15% would still need to come into their school buildings to provide instruction if we are doing instruction from home. We asked parents how many would be willing to waive or acknowledge the risk of returning to school, and this came after our conversation with Dr. Bissell, and her comments were that COVID is in our community. Anytime you get people together, you run the risk of getting it. We're probably going to have kids get it. We're probably going to have faculty and staff get it. Any type of reopening is probably going to result in positive COVID diagnoses for faculty and staff and within our community. So we have to be very upfront with everyone from the beginning. When we return to school, there is a chance your child will get COVID at school. We're going to do everything we can to try to mitigate that, and we're going to put many extra strategies in place to try to reduce the possibility of exposure. But the bottom line is anytime you get two or more people in the same room, if one of them is carrying it, then there's a chance that the other one will catch it. Comfort level in returning to face-to-face learning. As you can see, about 81% of our parents say they will probably have their student return or will definitely have their student return. 87% of the high school students said they are comfortable with returning. The faculty and staff was a little more divided. We had about a quarter of them who were not comfortable and about a little over a quarter who weren't sure, and then a little less than half who were comfortable or extremely comfortable with returning to face-to-face learning. And that measures up pretty well with the number of our faculty and staff who either are in a high-risk category or have a family member in a high-risk category. Parents and students, transportation needs after reopening. About 26% of our parents depend entirely on school-provided transportation, and 20% rely on bus transportation but could arrange to have their children driven to and from school at least 2 days per week. 54% can provide transportation. With the high school students, 78% either drive to school or dropped off by their parents. Comfort level with online learning for faculty and staff. One of the things that we'll have to deal with when there is a positive diagnosis in the school, we will have intermittent shutdowns. The intermittent shutdowns could occur for one school, or it may occur for the entire division, and we'll talk about that more in a minute when we get into the health plan and the instructional plan. But during intermittent shutdown, we would switch to all virtual learning, and so with our teachers, most are fairly comfortable with it or some or neutral, but we do have about 17% who are uncomfortable transitioning back and forth between virtual and face-to-face learning. And how comfortable are you with developing and delivering instruction using online platforms? And 82% of our teachers feel very comfortable with utilizing online platforms to provide instruction. So our takeaways from the survey, there are varying degrees of enthusiasm among stakeholders for returning to school 4 days per week. Approximately a quarter of our students, a quarter of our parents, a third of our students, and a tenth of our employees do not support wearing masks. Childcare for non-instructional days will be an issue for parents, faculty, and staff. A significant percentage of parents, students, faculty, and staff will need assistance in developing the skills needed for a successful implementation of online learning, and health screening procedures will require a concerted effort to be administered correctly. Okay, the first element that we have to present to the state tomorrow is our health plan. And this health plan would be enacted for all three phases, whether we're in phase 3, phase 2, or even if we have to go back into phase 1, we would utilize this health plan for anyone who comes into the school. Transportation. And our transportation plan was based on recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics. But students will be transported 1 per seat on school buses and required to wear a face mask. If we don't agree to wear a face mask, we can only get 1 every other seat. So this doubles our ability to transport students in by agreeing to wear a face mask. Student from the same household can be transported 2 per seat. School buses will be sanitized on a daily basis. The seat immediately behind the bus driver will be left vacant. When we discuss our at-risk faculty and staff, we have a lot of bus drivers who fall into that category, and we've had some resignations already this year for drivers who are concerned about their health and hesitant to come back. So we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to protect our drivers and keep them as healthy as possible when we get to go back to school. Parents will be asked and encouraged to provide transportation for their children as frequently as possible. Windows will be kept open when the weather allows. And parents will be asked to screen their children before putting them on the bus and keeping them home if they have any symptoms that will cause them to be screened out at school. Health screenings. Upon arrival to school, students should report immediately to the teacher with whom they are scheduled to begin their day. The teacher will conduct a brief health screening using the PCPS health screening instrument that includes a temperature check. And school board members have a copy of that instrument, and it's also available on the actual PDF document that's on board docs. A copy of that screening instrument is available for anyone who would like to take a look at it. Students who are identified as having symptoms will be referred to the school nurse, who will ensure that they are maintained in a designated isolation area until they can be picked up or taken home. The students sent home through the health screening at school will be placed on home-based virtual instruction for a minimum of 10 days or until they are fever-free for 3 consecutive days without the use of fever-inducing medication, whichever is longer. This is why it's important for parents to help screen students, because if we get a student in and they are complaining of nausea or they're complaining of a headache, we're going to screen them out and they will have to be home for at least 10 days. Whereas if you're helping screen them and you know that they have sinus problems and it's a bad time of the year for allergies, so you're holding them back for a day or 2 till the headache wears off, then they can return to school. But if they come to school and are screened out, they will be out for 10 days and they will be assigned to virtual learning. They're not going to be cut off completely for 10 days. They will just be switched over to a virtual platform for the length of time that they're out so that the attendance will not count against them. Faculty and staff members will be assigned a health screening partner for whom they will meet each morning to complete the health screening form, and they should also conduct a self-assessment before coming to work and utilize sick leave if they have any of the identified symptoms. The instructional day for elementary, and this is also based on the recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics, desks should be placed 3 to 6 feet apart. We are striving for 6 feet. That is not going to be possible if we get more than 50% of our students in any room. So we understand that it may be less than 6 feet, but it can't be any less than 3. And students will remain in the same classroom for all instruction. Their teachers will rotate as needed. Face coverings should be encouraged when distancing of 6 feet cannot be maintained for ages up to 9, and they'll be required for students ages 10 and over. Daily instruction and reminders are going to be provided about coughing and sneezing in the elbow, not touching your face, washing, sanitizing hands frequently, and other areas for maintaining good personal hygiene. That will be a crucial part, and it's something we're going to be asking all of our teachers to assist in, the reminders about the importance of good personal hygiene. We had a conference call with the state superintendent today, and he was going over some of the countries throughout the world who've already brought students back to school, and the ones that have been most successful at it have done so with face masks and having hand washing several times a day, every 2 hours, I think is what is required in Taiwan. Even if they haven't touched anything but what's on their desk, they still go sanitize their hands every 2 hours. And Taiwan has probably had the most successful continuity of education throughout all of this. They have not closed schools except for a few days at a time when they were experiencing some spikes. Outside instruction should be utilized whenever possible. The appropriate signage for COVID risk reduction will be posted throughout classrooms, and recess or gym should be conducted, but only with the assigned cohort, and all students should wash their hands with soap and water or use hand sanitizer following these activities or any others that involve multiple students touching the same objects. The instructional day for secondary, and this is also based on the American Academy of Pediatrics, same distance between desks. Face coverings will be required if 6 feet cannot be maintained. Outside instruction can be utilized when appropriate. Signage regarding COVID risk reduction will be posted, and schedules will be developed to limit student transitions to no more than 2 per day. Meals, all meals will be served as grab and go and eaten in the classroom for grades 3 through 12, and they will be delivered in the pre-K through 2 classrooms. The lunch schedules are going to be developed this year for the time that a particular class goes to pick up their lunch. It will not be at the high school third lunch for all students who are in one pod. It'll be each classroom will be assigned the time to go pick up their lunches. Lunches can be eaten outdoors as long as cohorts of students can be sufficiently separated. Students will be asked to wash and sanitize their hands before and after eating. The faculty and staff expectations to maintain 6 feet of social distancing and utilize face coverings whenever it can't be maintained. Faculty meetings and professional development will occur virtually unless they can be conducted in small enough groups for 6 feet of social distancing to be maintained. Assist in ensuring that commonly used surfaces are sanitized at the end of each day. Instruct students on proper COVID risk reduction measures, and offer viable solutions when it becomes evident that elements of this plan may not be sufficient for reducing risk. We realize we're all treading in new territory with this plan and with bringing students back under the conditions in which we have found ourselves. So we know that the plan, we think our plan is flexible enough that we can make changes when changes need to be made, and we're encouraging anyone who sees a possible change to bring that to our attention. Additional safety guidelines, guest speakers will only be utilized through virtual platforms. Visitors should not be allowed, but if there is a valid need to have one in the building, they need to complete the health screening form. Outside agencies that provide contracted services are expected to follow our COVID-related social distancing and mitigation guidelines. We will not be doing any off-campus field trips, and the operations department will be running air handling systems for an additional 6 hours per day when students are not in the building to ensure that we have continual fresh air circulating in the building. Are there any questions from board members about the health plan? Yes, yes. Any type of face covering, I think, would qualify. I'm sorry.
After instructional day for the elementary students.
Yes.
Where it said they should wash their hands with hand sanitizer after PE.
Yes.
Or after recess.
Yes.
I would like to do that before and after.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point because they would not be leaving. Yes. Right. Okay. We can add that in there. Any other questions about the health plan? Yes.
In the slide, faculty and staff expectations under number 5, I understand that there's really a natural desire to compare us to surrounding counties and tell us what other counties are doing and why can't we do what they're doing. But our resources are entirely different than other counties. Our geography is different. Our funding is different. I think if we try to tell Mr. Shull we're going to run buses 8 times a day, he would probably fall out. So resist the urge to compare us to other counties because we are unique. We are our own place with our own students and issues and geography. That's all.
Okay, the instructional plan. These are the reopening steps for phase 3. Step 1 on September 8th through the 11th, we'll be in school 4 days that week. 25% of the enrolled students will attend each day of the week. Students will be assigned their day alphabetically by school. I know that question came up several times in the comments that we have, and you know, we will look at the school, we will divide it into quarters, and the first 25% will come Tuesday alphabetically, the second 25% Wednesday, the third Thursday, and the final quarter will come on Friday of that week. And that day will primarily be used to issue all Chromebooks, to set students up in class, to review the procedures that will be in place. There will probably be opportunity for some instruction to begin, but that day is primarily going to be taking care of all the housekeeping things that you usually take care of on the first day of school, with the added stipulation that we're trying to do blended instruction and setting everyone up with what they need for virtual learning. If we can make it through the first week with no confirmed cases in any of our schools, then we will go to step 2 on week 2, which begins on September 14th. So on week 2 and for 2 weeks, September 14th through the 25th, we would have 50% of enrolled students attend Monday through Tuesday, and 50% will attend Thursday and Friday. Wednesdays are going to be used for virtual learning and deep cleaning of school buildings. If we can make it through the 2 full weeks with no confirmed cases within our schools, we'll move to step 3. Step 3 is tentatively scheduled for September 28th. 100% of enrolled students will attend Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesdays would still be used for virtual learning and deep cleaning of schools. On the step 2, it would be the same thing. We would assign them alphabetically for those 2 days, but we also would exercise some flexibility for families that may have students with different last names that would fall on different days. If they want them to come in on the day with an older sibling, we would try to work that out for families if it's requested. Step 4 would be a full return to 5 days per week, but at this point we would need additional guidance from the Virginia Department of Education, the Virginia Department of Health, before we could develop any type of parameters for step 4. And elementary age students of pre-K who are in pre-K through 5 of Pulaski County Public School employees would be allowed to attend school each day that face-to-face instruction is offered during steps 1 and 2. And that was a necessary element to make sure that our teachers were available to teach on those days. It is something that has been adopted by other counties. I think I personally would have concerns about equity issues if we were doing that long term, because you're giving more face-to-face instruction to the children of faculty and staff, and less instruction to special ed students and students from high poverty. So I think there would be equity issues to do that long term. But for the short term with our plan, everybody with whom I discussed it seemed okay with that and seemed to feel it was all right. And there are neighboring counties that are doing that long term, but I have discussed with one neighboring superintendent that I believe he's setting himself up for some equity complaints on that regard. Reopening steps for Pulaski County Middle School, and we discussed this a little earlier. Due to 2 weeks worth of schedule delays caused by the outbreak at the work site, the middle school will have a different plan for reopening. During the week of August 31st to September 3rd, we will schedule times for middle school students to come to Pulaski County High School, and we will issue their Chromebooks and set their courses up through Virtual Virginia and teach them how to access that through the Chromebooks. And then they will have to participate in all virtual learning from September 8th through September 18th. Pulaski County Middle School students will begin attending in-person classes during the week of September 21st, and instruction will be provided on the same schedule as other schools from that point forward. Our plan for intermittent shutdowns, as we discussed earlier, there's a high probability that we will go into intermittent shutdowns whenever there's a positive diagnosis for many of our faculty and staff or for many of our students. So if we have a confirmed case in any individual school, that school would revert to phase 1, which is all virtual, for a period of time to allow for a deep cleaning, contact tracing, and a reentry plan to be developed with guidance from the New River Health District. And we're not assigning a particular number of days to that, because it would depend on the circumstances. And that was how we worked it out with the Virginia Department of Health. If it was one student who was only in the school for 10 or 15 minutes, that would be a different case than one student who might have spent a whole week with 50 or 60 students. And so the reentry plan will be based on the number of students who have to, if other students have to be tested or contact tracing has to be done. Should we have confirmed cases in multiple schools at the same time, then we may decide to put the entire school division on phase 1, and probably would for a period of time to allow for deep cleaning, contact tracing, and a reentry plan to be developed with guidance from the New River Health District. And a division-wide shutdown would likely result in a phased reopening, depending on how large scale the outbreak was. We would look at the possible need for doing a phased reopening similar to how we started this school year. Okay, student schedules. Elementary students will be assigned one teacher for all instruction in reading, math, science, and social studies. All other teachers will act as itinerant and move from classroom to classroom to provide instruction. So elementary students will be spending the bulk of the day in the classroom. Unless they have PE, we can use the gym for PE, or they can go outside for PE and recess. Middle school, we are going to double block the middle school schedules so that they receive 2 core subjects and an elective on Mondays and Thursdays, and the other 2 core subjects and an elective on Tuesdays and Fridays. And that's going to be achieved through team concepts and teachers rotating into the classroom for core subjects when possible, or use staggered transitions while wearing face masks. If students have to go out and move from one class to the other, they will need to have face masks on. And students will travel in staggered intervals to their elective courses with the use of face masks. High school will be double block scheduled so that students take their first and second block courses on Mondays and Thursdays, while third and fourth block courses will be held on Tuesdays and Fridays. Students can travel in staggered intervals there, also with the use of face masks. And we were discussing yesterday the potential in the around the locker banks to maybe make it one way. So as students exit their pod, they all go clockwise till they get around to their next class, so they're not running into each other going through the locker bank area. I don't know if that will work or not, but those are some of the things that we're looking at as we try to put more specific guidance to this plan. The secondary virtual expectation, due to a decrease in instructional hours, 1 hour of virtual instruction should be provided to secondary students each afternoon following face-to-face instruction. For example, the high school could have 1 hour of virtual for first block on Mondays, third on Tuesdays, second block Thursdays, and fourth block on Fridays, but they have flexibility to set that up themselves. That is just an example of how that would work. And that is because the middle and high school will have a shorter instructional day than what they typically have. And we'll talk about that more in a minute when we get to the transportation plan. To bridge the learning gaps, principals are going to be working with this year's teachers and last year's teachers to determine where gaps may be in the areas of English and math. We encourage looping at the elementary grades, which means students who maybe had Mrs. Smith last year in third grade, we would move Mrs. Smith up with them to fourth grade and give her the same students, so they would have that familiarity, and it would probably allow for an easier transition. And I don't know how many elementary schools are taking a serious look at that, but it is something that we recommend, and it was recommended by the Virginia Department of Education as well. We'll conduct formative assessments, and then the instructional coordinators will work with principals and teachers to identify those types of formative assessments. So we'll have the teachers speak to each other about what wasn't covered at the end of last year. We'll do some formative assessments to find out where students are starting. We understand that we will have a number who are starting behind where they would have ordinarily been had we been able to have a full year last year. And then we will assign the first 10 to 15 instructional days will be used by teachers to cover the reading or English and math content and concepts that were not covered last year, as evidenced by the formative assessments and the conversations between teachers. The classroom teachers, it'll be their discretion when they can begin teaching new content, but we do ask that they communicate that with the building principal. And also, we're going to be asking the next item on the agenda that we change our calendar for this coming year. Instead of having 990 hours and 160 days, we go to 180 instructional day calendar to allow for these additional days to try to bridge the learning gaps from last year. New instruction, how we're going to deliver new instruction is also a required part of the plan for the state. So it'll begin once the teacher is satisfied that a 2/3 majority of the students are ready to move forward. But the students who aren't quite ready to move forward, they will continue working with those students to try to continue working on bridging that gap. And students who are not assigned to the virtual academy will be instructed by the teachers listed on their schedule. Pacing guides are going to be evaluated and modified to ensure that content most compatible with virtual learning is introduced at the beginning of the year. All instruction is going to be delivered with some use of Virtual Virginia to allow for easier transitions to full virtual learning during the likely intermittent shutdowns. So we know we're probably going to be shutting schools down from time to time. So we want all students and all teachers to be familiar or comfortable with making that transition. If we say, all right, we're going to have to close down DES for 3 days and it's all virtual learning, and we track attendance through the students logging in on their computers, and everything goes forward as it would if they were in the classroom. It's just the content will be delivered to them virtually. And we recommend that teachers try to use Wednesdays for virtual assessments. That's a good activity to plan on every week. It helps get the teachers familiar with using the platforms. It helps get the students familiar with logging on and taking tests and submitting work to teachers. So it's just a suggestion. It's not a requirement. Special ed services for students with an IEP, the gaps that will be determined using the same steps for all students, unless the IEP team feels that additional strategies need to be utilized in determining an individual student's learning gaps. Case management services are going to be provided, and we expect the case manager to make a weekly contact with the parent of our students with disabilities to gauge how well they're doing with the blended instruction and the virtual days that instruction are offered, making sure that they're getting the support that they need to help their students be successful with the virtual side of learning. All timelines regarding special ed are still expected to be met, and we're working to try to reduce the special ed teachers being exposed to multiple classrooms. You know, that they'll have to be exposed to multiple classrooms, but we're looking at ways to reduce the number as best we can. And that may vary from school to school depending on how the services are delivered there. Our technology plan, all students will be issued a Chromebook and assigned their scheduled courses through the Virtual Virginia platform. And all content teachers will develop their courses through Virtual Virginia or use the course program that is already in place. Virtual Virginia has a large catalog of offerings that are very compatible with the courses that we already have. So the resources and the instructional tools are there for our teachers to use, and we certainly want them to do that, but we also don't want to tie their hands with just that. If they have other strategies that have worked over time, we want them to be able to incorporate that into their Virtual Virginia lessons. And special education teachers will assist co-teachers with adapting the curricula for special education students. Principals, classroom teachers, and ITRTs are going to work to identify students without sufficient internet services in their home. And then our technology department will work with families to identify options for increasing internet accessibility. And Josh has, I know he's been working on what options are available, and there are a few. There aren't a whole lot, especially in the more rural parts of the county, but we will try to work out a plan with every student who doesn't have sufficient internet access. And of course, all of our school parking lots are going to continue to remain hot spots, so any student or parent can pull into the parking lot and download assignments or download the videos that they need if they don't have sufficient internet access. Student services will be doing a needs assessment for each student, and the counselors and administrators will review those assessments and develop a plan for any students who need additional support. We will utilize prevention strategies and additional resources to help meet the needs of each student, communicate frequently with families. Teachers are expected to make a monthly individual connection with the parents of each of their students. Academic and career plans will continue to be developed and updated through the use of in-person and virtual meetings with school counselors. Individual, personal, and career counseling will be provided through in-person and virtual counseling. We know from the way school ended last year, the major clarity part of the career planning for high school students, it was done for the students who were scheduled to get it done the first semester, but it wasn't the second semester. So there'll be some catching up to do with those students, and as well as getting the ones completed this year that need to be completed. Title I math, Title I reading, and gifted and talented will continue as in-person and virtual courses. Attendance, participation, and expectations. Students will be scheduled and expected to attend up to 4 days per week and participate in distance learning activities as scheduled. If students are screened out from attending because of the health screening form, they will be switched to virtual, but we will work out the attendance plan so that is not counted against them in regard to attendance. If we're sending them home and making them learn, participate in virtual learning, we don't feel that they should be penalized in regard to their attendance. And if they are not participating in their assigned attendance days and distance learning, they can be referred to the division's truancy team for additional action. And since we're counting every day as instructional day, those same timelines would be in place. That was a question that came up earlier from one of the parents, but I think Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it at 7 days that the truancy team starts taking a look at students? So after 7 days, that student would be referred to the truancy team, whether that was 7 days in person or 7 days of virtual that they didn't participate in, or a combination of both. And a minimum expectation for attendance checks and interactions with educators and counselors will be communicated with families for students who participate in full virtual instruction. So the students who are going through the Pulaski County Virtual Academy, there will be expectations that they have regular face-to-face communication virtually through the platform with their teacher, as well as being assigned the assignments and assessments to work on independently. Transportation. Transportation it will be provided for all students utilizing a generalized bus route that are similar to those used during summer school. The only way we can make this plan work is to shorten the bus routes and have each driver run 2 routes. Any other way, there'd be no way possible to get students in for 4 days a week. So the transportation office has been working on what those bus routes look like, and I think you'll be prepared to discuss them a little bit on Thursday evening, won't you, Jess?
Yes, they're back and turn by turn, we got them set up.
Okay, so we'll have the generalized bus routes. Students will be seated 1 per seat, beginning at the back of the bus, working their way forward, and they must wear a face mask. And students from the same household can be transported 2 per seat. Buses will be sanitized each day. Parents will be encouraged to transport as frequently as possible. And the next part is why we're doing the extra hour of virtual for secondary schools. The elementary instructional day will be from 8:30 to 3:30. Teacher hours will be the elementary instructional day will be from 8:30 to 3. Teacher hours will be from 8 to 3:30. The secondary instructional day will be from 9:15 to 2:15, and the teacher hours will be from 8:30 to 4. And Jennifer, Ms. Bowling, are you still here? She has made a request that we look at shifting that 15 minutes, and I haven't fully thought through that yet. So this may not be exactly what we start the year at, but it's going to be pretty close. It might go 15 minutes one way or another. This is where we are currently. And the length of the day would remain the same for students anyway. I think it was with the teacher hours that we were looking at shifting maybe from 8:15 to 3:45 for secondary to make sure we have more teachers in the building when students start arriving. But doing the schedule this way does make, it allows us to transport more students in because each driver is running 2 runs, and it ensures that older students are available to supervise their younger siblings before and after school. Cafeteria and custodial services. Same as we discussed in the health plan, grab and go for 3 through 12 delivered for students in pre-K 2, eating in the classroom. Meals for Wednesday are going to be provided to students on Tuesday. In the event that common spaces are utilized for meals, we're going to maintain 6 feet of social distancing, and that would only be, in an emergency situation. If we have to have students eat in the cafeteria, that should not be happening on a day-to-day basis. And with custodial services, we're going to make sure that mitigation and sanitization materials are in ample supply at each school and available for teachers and students when they are needed, and that all touch surfaces in the classroom are sanitized daily, and that deep cleaning is performed on Wednesdays. Logistical needs for this plan will need to the plan for issuing and training students and parents on Chromebooks and Virtual Virginia. All students are going to need, all teachers will need to be trained in Virtual Virginia. So we looked at making the 2 days that we had scheduled for crisis prevention intervention training this summer to Virtual Virginia training. We need to make sure we have sufficient PPE and cleaning supplies and hand sanitizer on hand at each school. Schools need to prepare for what they'll need to have lunch in the classroom, which include having larger garbage cans in close proximity to the classrooms. We're going to need a registration system for transportation so we can make sure that we have a bus ride in for all students who need it. And we're going to need trainings on health screenings. Are there any questions about the Phase 3 instructional plan?
What are we, this may fit in all of them, but what are we gonna do about any of the visits by anyone involved in the hotspot areas?
It's a good question because we had that as part of our health screening form. And then based on the guidance we received last week from the New River Health District, the focus now is on your behaviors, not where you have traveled to where you have traveled. And so the question was changed from, have you left the New River Valley in the last 14 days to, the question is now, have you been around any large groups where social distancing was not maintained and you did not wear a face mask? And if the answer to that is yes, then the suggestion would be that you are quarantined for 5 days and that you have a COVID test.
So, what if those events like that are happening like every 2 or 3 weeks? They quarantine, whomever we're talking about, quarantines themselves, and then you're right back into it again, so they're right back into quarantine.
Yeah, I would think if we have a student and that's happening multiple times, we would probably have a discussion about that student just participating in all virtual learning.
What if it's not the student? What if it's faculty, staff, bus driver, superintendent?
We would have to work that out. If they had sick leave to cover the quarantine, then we would probably just have to continue doing that. But at some point they're going to run out of sick leave to be quarantined.
I've got several questions, so we might as well get some now. How is this whole plan going to be communicated? You noted earlier that the survey was probably taken only by those who have internet access, whatever kind of cell phone access, whatever, but they're not even hearing this right now if they don't. How's it going to be communicated to the other students and their families?
Well, we will have to, I would think once we do the registration and know who has not registered, then the principals will be making individual calls with those families to work out their plan, to discuss the reopening plan and work out the details for what their family would need.
Another question, months ago, it seems like years ago now, we discussed that there would be no cell phone usage in any of the schools. We'd have these little pocket pack things
Yes.
to put them in. That's still going to be implemented?
Yes, we have purchased the Yonder pouches, and unless the board decides otherwise, that was what we changed our policy to reflect for this year. So there would be the no cell phones during the instructional day.
More touching.
Yes.
Cleaning.
And students have, every student would have the Chromebook. So if parents need to reach them, they would be able to email them during the day. They would have access to their email through their PCPS Google account.
And nowhere in any of this have we ever discussed where the resource officers are in this. At some point, I would like an answer on that, is whether or not they will be at the schools or not.
Yes, I assume that they would still be at the schools, and they would fall in under the other service providers. They would be expected to follow the same guidelines as the faculty and staff of the school system, if they're, wear the face mask and utilize the social distancing and sanitize their hands after they touch items. But yes, we'll have to communicate that with New River Community Services and the Sheriff's Department and Family Preservation Services. Anybody who's sending their employees in the school system to work, we'll have to have a conversation with them once we have a plan that we can discuss with them.
I had a couple of questions from teachers about the issue of substitutes and how are we, if we do have to have teachers self-quarantine for 10 days, how are we gonna handle getting them substitutes?
It's a very good question and a legitimate concern. We have not polled our subs yet because, like with the Sheriff's Department and outside providers, we've been waiting until we had an approved plan that we can answer their questions when we do have conversations with them. And our plan is to poll the subs and determine how many are willing to come in under the guidelines that we're going to have in place. And understanding that we have a lot of retired teachers who are on the sub list who may not feel comfortable. We hope they wouldn't resign from substituting. We would hope that they would just say, take me off or put me on the do not call list for the first semester, and then I'll evaluate it about coming back the second semester. And because we certainly don't want to lose subs over it, but we recognize we are going to be entering this year with less subs than what we've had previously. And there's the very real possibility that we could have to go into phase one at a particular school just because we have 2 or 3 teachers who are quarantined and we can't get subs to cover it. So we will have a list within the next couple of weeks of the subs that are willing to come and work under the guidelines of the plan, and then we'll work out the plan to give them the training that they'll need to be able to implement the strategies that we're putting in place, the mitigation strategies.
One final question, and this one, I haven't picked up on it throughout all of these many pages. If students are either coming in person 1, 2 days a week, whatever that is, and there's possibly a virtual day, will there work be given to them that would then give them instructional time that they maybe self-led on the other 2 days? Or like if there is, let's just use this example, if a child students are coming in 1 day per week and whatever we fall in these plans, and there's a virtual day, what are we doing for those other 3 days? Is that what they've downloaded to the Chromebooks?
Yes, it would be very difficult since they have the same teachers, and the teachers will be working with another group of students on the days that they aren't there. It would be possible the teacher could turn the camera on while they're delivering a lesson and have the students tune in and watch it and participate that way. But this early on in the process, I don't know that we will have every teacher at that level of comfort with doing virtual instruction yet. So there could just be assignments, and maybe the teacher follows up with them during their planning period on that day just to answer any questions that they may have, or follows up with them immediately after school. We'll have to have that conversation with principals and let each school work out how they want to handle that. But there would be the expectation that something be assigned and be worked on each day so that it could count as an instructional day, a virtual instructional day. But I think we'll have a lot of flexibility as to what that will look like, especially early on. Now, I think as we get deeper into the year, the expectation is going to be, okay, if Wednesday is your virtual instruction day, at the high school, students need to log on at 9 o'clock, log on to your first block class, and that teacher will deliver content in whatever way he or she sees fit. And they won't, don't necessarily have to stay on there engaging them for an hour and a half, but enough so that they can take attendance on that day. And then at 10:30, log on to your second period class and participate with that teacher. And then, and same thing for the afternoon classes. There would just be a set time that students would be expected to log on and have some type of interaction with their teacher on the virtual day. But that would be very difficult to do at the very beginning of the year. So we'll have a lot more flexibility early on as to what we expect on that.
And it may seem like it's a little small, insignificant ask, but I was trying to think, we're asking so much of our teachers and our staff this year. If we could, I'm trying to think of what would make things a little easier for me to make the planning, and it's gonna sound really ridiculous, but I promise it's a big deal to teachers. We allow them to wear jeans to school.
That is perfectly fine with me, and I think most schools do allow that. I realize that some don't, but we have schools that allow it, and we've allowed the middle school teachers to wear shorts and t-shirts just because of the heat in there. So yes, I have no problem with that at all.
And I know that it sounds absolutely crazy, but if you're a teacher, you know that can be pretty significant. That can make the day a lot easier if you can put on jeans. And I'm also thinking if they're dressed up and the child sees it on your shirt, then easier to go change the I'm sorry, it's easier to go change the t-shirt and change the entire outfit. I know it's gross, but.
You talk about it, it sounds crazy. We're in a crazy time.
Yes, yeah. If they want to wear flip-flops and sombreros, we would support that, Dr. Tash, as long as they're happy about what they're doing and the kids feel good about the way their classes are going.
Our pajamas online?
Just a couple of quick questions. Currently, how many students do we have that have signed up to go strictly virtual learning?
Approximately 270.
Okay, so it's up 20 this week then.
How many of our faculty will be handling this?
We had around 60 who said they are interested in teaching virtually. Some of them were interested in doing it for maybe one course, and some of them were interested in doing it full time. So we can't really determine that number until we know how many students are signed up for it. But we are looking at that right now, and as we get what would equate to a full class load, we'll start looking at which teachers who are certified in that area have requested to be able to teach virtually, keeping in mind that will be pulling a teacher out of some of our schools too. But we are working that out, and I think we just hired both of our ITRTs, and they will be working with Josh and Lincoln to help coordinate with those teachers, because that will require probably a little more intensive training up front to help them get the classes set up and figure out how they're going to communicate with those students.
Any other questions for Sears?
I just had an image of Austin and learning. Through my mind.
Okay, our phase 2 instructional plan, I've put the items in red that are different from our phase 3 instructional plan. Most of it is the same, but with Virginia's increasing numbers, there is the possibility that we could be placed back on phase 2. I think most of the increases right now are occurring down around Hampton Roads, and our numbers are still low, but they're rising. But if we were put back on phase 2, we could still open, but it would look more like what I'm going to present now, and that is grades pre-K through grades 3 can receive face-to-face instruction 2 days per week and remote learning activities on the other 3 days. Special education students and English language learner students of all grades can receive up to 4 days per week of face-to-face and at least 1 day of remote learning activities, but decisions regarding those students would be based on the individual needs of each student. And in the case of special ed students, that would be determined by the IEP team. Just because a student has an IEP doesn't mean they could come in 4 days a week. It would depend on what the needs of that student were. And then all regular education students in grades 4 through 12 will participate in remote learning 5 days per week. Bridging learning gaps would look the same. For new instruction, under phase 2, elementary art, music, and PE teachers would provide remote instruction using the Virtual Virginia platform for students who are not permitted to attend under phase 2 guidelines. So we would expect those students to still have some exposure to the specials that they have ordinarily in their calendar. The 4th and 5th graders, it would just have to be done virtually. And the same thing with reading specialists and math specialists at the elementary level. They would still need to deliver services to those students virtually, the students who are not permitted to come under phase 2. Special ed services would look the same. Technology would look the same. Student services. Transportation would look a little different. If we are in a phase 2 opening, we can run all regular bus routes. Since we're only bringing in pre-K through grade 3, we could run our regular routes as they are now, with each bus making one route and make that make our runs successfully. Cafeteria and custodial services are the same. And then our phase 1 guidelines, we could be put back in phase 1 if there was a significant spike in the state. But more than likely, when we go into phase 1, it'll be because we're in an intermittent shutdown at one school or as a division. And what that would look like is all students receiving virtual instruction using the Virtual Virginia platform. Teachers could teach courses from home unless there is a specific need for them to come in. And I listed there as the example special ed or ELL services. If they are needed to be delivered in person, then the teachers will need to come in to provide those services. And the expectation is that new material will be taught and all work be graded. And the special ed and ELL students could be brought in up to 2 days per week to receive services. If they needed occupational therapy or speech therapy, then we could make arrangements to have them brought in to still receive those services if we can't provide them virtually. And educational placements with outside agencies will continue as determined by the IEP team. So the students who are attending the Minnick Center in Withville, as long as they are still in operation and the IEP team is still in agreement that it's the best thing for the student to go there, then we would still continue to provide transportation for those students. And this is just a reminder, and I discussed this at the beginning too. If there are any parents who have concerns about students returning to face-to-face instruction, please register them for the Virtual Academy, and they can take all virtual courses until you're ready for them to return. We probably are going to ask that the return to school be made when there's a clean break, like at the end of each grading period, and not have a lot of going back and forth. But that can be decided, based on the needs of each student. If there's our preference would be that it be done at the end of a grading period. If we're going to transition from virtual learning back into the classroom, or from the classroom into full virtual after July 31st of this year. Otherwise, it makes it really difficult to plan and staff the virtual program. But the PC Virtual Academy will ensure that the students remain enrolled at his or her home school, and it facilitates an easier transition back when the time comes. The Virtual Academy will be offered throughout the entire school year this year, and we will look at extending it through next year if it is still needed. And parents can register students by calling Tammy Harrell at her number, which is listed there, or emailing her at her email address. And the deadline for registering students for this is on Friday, July 31st. And then the following week, we will start working on the plan to assign teachers to teach these classes, and communicating with those teachers and working it out with their home schools, with their principals to pull them out and cover classes as best we can. Okay, that is our plan, our health plan, and our return to school instructional plan for all 3 phases. Are there any questions or comments?
I have 2 more questions.
Okay.
Does it blend into what the governor's school is doing?
It does to a degree. I think the governor's school was starting out with almost all virtual, and then they're doing a phased reopening as well. But our timelines don't match up very well because the governor's school starts in early August and we're not starting until September.
Wondering timing of their classes and the timing
Oh,
of
yes.
the high school classes, if there's
And we,
or work, but otherwise they're gonna be in one class and then they come in
Yeah.
at the very end of a class.
I'll have to discuss that with Rebecca, and it may be that if, if they're at Governor's School at the beginning of the day, so it would affect first, they're probably not going to be here anyway for that, but their third period class on the days that they would start in third period, it could impact it. So it may be we have to put them in a full-on virtual class for their third period class.
The second part of this statement, maybe question. Are we getting this word out on the virtual academy to the homeschool group and offering it to them as an option for what they're doing right now?
We have not sent out a letter stating that we offer that, but I think we had a couple of students come off of homeschool, didn't we, Mary?
And I think the word is out there, they're seeing it on Facebook, I guess, and different postings, and we've had a couple who've come in, and any that have called us directly this year to reapply for homeschool for next year, we always say, you are aware that we're offering this opportunity if you would like to consider re-enrolling in Pulaski County Schools.
Yeah, and we could probably draft a letter to send to all the homeschool parents as well, couldn't we, to let them know that this is an option for them.
Any other questions? One, just brief comment. Thank the task force for the work that they've done. 35 folks, I believe, were involved in this task force, and as well as some of our board members. I was not a member of the task force, however, I did sit in on a couple of the meetings, and it's quite remarkable the time and effort that went into this, and the thought that went into this. Compared to other divisions' plans, I think Pulaski County has done an excellent job. I think just about everything that can be thought of has been thought of. I'm sure that we will. This is going to be like changing the tire at 50-mile an hour. Probably making adjustments as we go along. But I just want to thank the task force for the work that they've done. If there are no other questions or comments, is there a motion from the board to approve the 2020-2021 school year plan?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school reopening plan.
Sir, second.
Second.
Mrs. Porter.
Mrs. Golden? Yes. Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash? Yes.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Sears. Members of the school calendar, Dr. Sears, unless you're tired of talking, we'll let you come in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The revised school calendar is included in the packets that were given to each board member, and this is just taking us back from the 990-hour calendar in 160 days to 180 instructional day calendar, which is actually where we started in the conversation back in February before we changed it and went with the 160 days and increased the length of the instructional days. So it's I think there will be some flexibility this year, even with snow days, to you count those as instructional days if we have our virtual programming up and going. So, hopefully there would not be the need to make up any days or extend this time if we can get our program functioning like it should be. I see the scenario where a snow day is just a day of learning from home and still counted as an instructional day.
That's going to require some extensive communication because I remember well how my little boys got so excited about a school day and thought they had the day off. And we'll have to communicate well that that's not a day off. You're just in a different place. Put the sled down.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve the calendar?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the revised 2020-2021 calendar.
Motion been made, is there a second? Mrs. Porter?
Mrs. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Brings us to future agenda items. At this time, the board can request the future agenda item that you'd like to see included in your upcoming meeting.
Can't wait to see the new school. I look forward to the ribbon cutting, so that's not a future agenda item, but I look forward to that.
Brings us to recognition of citizens. At this time, if anyone would like to address the board and present ideas and concerns regarding Pulaski County Public Schools, we'd ask you please come forward. Everybody's ready to go home. So we want to thank all of you for coming tonight. Great deal on the agenda tonight. Appreciate it.
Mr. Hurst, we do have a number of comments on this that are noted as please read. I will try to go through them as quickly as I can, but there are a lot. From Hazel Wines, what is the best way for parents and students to contact PCPS with questions and concerns? I would say to call and schedule an appointment for either a phone conversation or if you can catch us, we'll talk to you when you call. But if not, schedule an appointment. We would be happy to speak with anyone who had questions or concerns. Let's see, from Lauren Whited, if we enroll a child in the virtual due to having immune system issues such as diabetes, will they still be part of the local school system and 504 plans be honored? Yes, they would still be part of their homeschool, and we would still honor whatever part of the 504 would be applicable to virtual learning. Will our children have to be tested? Not as a general rule, but if they are exposed and, if someone in their classroom tests positive and they had been in close proximity to them, they may have to be, and that would be something we would work out with the Virginia Department of Health. From Shannon O'Reilly, Virtual Virginia's website shows middle and high school course options. Will there be elementary options made public, or is the curriculum standard? There are elementary options, and we will make more information about that available. We have just had that opened up to us in the past week to be able to sign on and get the training. So we're still learning more about Virtual Virginia. I know that Lincoln Whitaker, one of our ITRTs, has been working diligently on this and putting our plan together, and we should have more information within the next few days about how Virtual Virginia will work for all students. Okay, Ms. Rash says by August 1st, we will be able to put out information to parents on that. Let's see, Shannon O'Reilly, how will talented and gifted students be supported if Virtual Virginia is the chosen option? The teachers will work with each student to supplement whatever the curricula that they are taking for that year. It will work as similarly to how it does with the face-to-face instruction, and hopefully they'll be able to get most of the talented and gifted services through face-to-face instruction. Dingo Lorian asked, some of our children are special needs and have issues with wearing masks and cannot be made to wear a mask. What is your plan on how to get around this? I think if they are under age 9, it's much easier to exercise some flexibility. If they're 10 and over, we would probably need a note from their physician saying that they can't do it, but we would work. That would be an individual decision. I mean, that would be a plan we would have to work out for each individual student, and their case manager could probably give you more guidance on that after we begin the school year. The same person also asked, never mind, that was just a statement. Eric Busey, the phased return ramp up seems too fast. It gives very little time for students and staff to acclimate and monitor the protocols. Please consider at least 2 weeks at 25% and 3 weeks at 50%. We discussed a number of options on that, and this was, what we felt that we needed to get the students acclimated and to bring them in. And since we are having such a later start to the year anyway, that would put us well into October before we get students back in. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility. If we start having, cases, that very well may be the timeline that we work under anyway, if we have any confirmed cases while we're in step 1 or step 2. But that is, what we have decided as a task force and with input from the Dr. Bissell with the health department, and she seemed to like the way we were phasing in and the time frame that we had put together. Apology from Shannon O'Reilly. Apologies if addressed already. Will masks be made available for students who do not have them daily? We have purchased 2 cloth masks for each student. And so we will have those available. Schools may also be doing masks. I don't know. But of course, there will be the expectation that parents provide masks, but we will try to help meet that need if that's not possible. Eric Busey, please consider additional PPE mitigation measures for staff and elementary students, face shields, students and staff, and portable folding desk shields. We have ordered face shields for all of our teachers in the county, and we can make them available for students. If the face shield is something that's more comfortable for them than the face mask, we can work with that student to try to make those available. Eric Busey, where 6 feet of social distancing language invites a certain level of subjectivity, please consider revising this language to be more declarative and specific. That is what we put that in the plan based on the recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics. That was their recommendation. It's what Dr. Bissell agreed to, that would be an acceptable mitigation plan. I don't know how to make it more specific. We're striving for 6 feet, but when we get 16, 17 kids in a classroom, we're probably not going to be able to maintain 6 feet. But we're not going to go below 3 feet. And I don't know how many of our high school classes that you've been in, but some of them, students' desks are crammed right on top of each other, and we're not going to have that this year. We're going to make sure that that we have at least 3 feet between each desk. Eric Busey, the health plan does not mention signage. It does mention signage. It was in there several times. Please consider adding signage for social distancing reminders, including floor stickers in all classrooms and common areas such as the hallways. EMS, read public, with the incubation period being 2 to 14 days. How will the 5-day 25% be enough time to see if we get confirmed cases? It will be, if we have any confirmed cases on those days, assuming people may have already been carrying it up to that point. I'm not really sure what that person is asking. Terry Umbarger, how will you know the confirmed cases? I know with the flu, if parents just called the child in sick, they didn't get a report as flu would be the same as COVID. The health department would notify us. Hopefully the parent would notify us in advance of the health department, but we do have a very strong working relationship with the health department to communicate that, and we will work with them on contact tracing if any of our students do test positive.
No student name will be given out.
No. Well, to the health department, it would have to be, but yes, not publicly. Delana Eanes, how will the instructions for special needs children be put together in the virtual academy if we wanted to enroll them in it? That would be based on that student's individual needs. It could be that we assign a special ed teacher to meet with them virtually each day, to provide whatever assistance is needed. If they need read aloud on their assessments, we could have a paraprofessional log in virtually to provide the read aloud. It will be a case-by-case basis, but I feel really good that we're going to be able to put a plan together that meets the needs of students with disabilities who are going the virtual route. Terry Umberger, if virtual, what classes will be offered for electives? Some children need classes to finish their certificates, and some need prerequisites in order to achieve CTE certifications. If they go all virtual, you are right in that they will be limited to what their elective courses are, but it won't be as limited as to just what is offered in virtual Virginia. The teachers will be able to develop virtual curricula through the Virtual Virginia program, but For the CTE classes, this question came up earlier on here. If we have a senior or a junior who wants to do all virtual, but they need to finish welding for that to get whatever industry credential comes with that, we are agreeable to setting up a plan for upperclassmen to have a hybrid schedule where they come in for those classes and do those face-to-face, but do all others virtual. And that will be something that will be communicated from the CTE director as we move forward with this plan. From Gillespie 351, how many days in class or online will need to be missed before it is considered truancy? That would be 7 unconfirmed. If a student is sick and we have calls, we can work around that. But if the student's just not logging in virtually or not coming to class, then they would be referred to the truancy team at the 7th absence. Dingalorian again. Since masks are going to be made mandatory, why isn't PCPS going to be providing them for students? We have purchased 2 masks for each student, and we'll have paper masks on hand to issue out to students if they happen to forget theirs on a particular day. Please read publicly. Kendra Robertson, how will classes be covered when there's a staff absence due to something other than COVID? At 6 a.m., my child wakes up with a stomach bug and I'm unavailable to teach. We discussed substitutes a while ago. Our goal will be to try to have enough substitutes to cover. And I know this question will come up, but if we have a teacher who is quarantined because they had a symptom, they're not displaying, they are still well enough to participate, then we can probably work out the plan for them to teach from home virtually during the quarantine and not have to utilize sick leave while the substitute provides the supervision in the class. That's something we can work out, and I think that's a viable solution. But it's the same issue that we have under regular circumstances. Subs are difficult to come by, and this year they're going to be more difficult, but we will just have to try to work through it. And if it gets to the point that we have individual schools that do not have enough coverage, then we may have to look at putting them in phase 1 until we can get teachers back. Lauren Whited, please read. If both parents work during the day for immune compromised students, will the virtual environment be flexible enough to accommodate work schedules? It could be. If they're full virtual, I think we probably have a little more flexibility than if they're enrolled as a face-to-face student, but are quarantined for 10 days and have to have virtual learning. Those may be more time restrictive, but for the full virtual students, I think we can probably work out something. Jesse Andela, please read publicly. Will there be specific procedure if students, parents, or family member test positive? If a student tests positive and they've been in our schools, then we will go to phase 1 and go to virtual learning and work with the Department of Health on our reentry plan. If a student's family member tests positive and they have been exposed, but the student does not, we would probably ask that student be quarantined for 10 days and work through the process for returning. Will buses be cleaned between schools drop off and school pickup and then again at the end of the day? That is something we hope to achieve. We know that they will be sanitized daily. A lot will depend on how many students are utilizing transportation. I really don't have an answer for that yet. Under phase 2, they definitely would be cleaned between each run, but we're only doing 1 run on phase 2. On phase 3, each bus driver is going to be doing 4 runs a day, and it would probably be extremely difficult to sanitize them between each run. But we will do the best we can, and having the mask as a requirement on the bus should help mitigate some of the exposure or some of the contamination that would be on buses. Okay, Dingo Lorian, please ask what will happen to teachers when they run out of sick leave. If they continue to get sick while teaching our children, will they be fired or given treatment? New use of special circumstances. There is family medical leave that teachers can use it if needed, and that provides up to 12 weeks a year. There's additional leave under the stimulus. What is it called? Families First Act. So I think there are a lot of options for our faculty and staff members. We will just have to work that out individually. But no, we do not intend to fire people who have a legitimate illness and are trying to work through these issues. That's not what we do. We work with people to try to keep them employed and do what's best for our employees and their families. See, Jonathan Hallman, if we are supposed to use Chromebooks and the students' emails to reach our student, will all email addresses have access to email students? That question came up before, Josh. Can we do that?
We don't allow outside people to email our students. We typically just allow the students to email their teachers the PCA US accounts, but we can make some allowances with whitelist addresses. So we can really get as granular as we want to with that.
Okay, so yes, we will work to grant permission for parents, and we need to try to figure out how to limit that so that they're not getting multiple spam emails sent in every day. But we will try to work that out so that so that the emails can come through our system. Thank you for that. That's a good point. Shannon Ainsley, will students who use virtual learning be able to participate in electives like band or clubs if transportation is provided? That would be possible. I don't know how many clubs we're going to be having under phase 3, but if we get to phase 4 and the student is still on virtual, that would probably be something that we could work out for students. Band is a whole different animal. Band and music right now, we are being discouraged from offering those courses, and we didn't put it in our plan because we haven't had a chance to think through it fully yet. But the most recent guidance is discouraging the band and choir type courses because those are where you're exhaling frequently, and it just increases the risk of exposure. So we have to work on that. We still hope to be able to offer those type of electives, but we'll have to think through how they're going to be done. Is there any planning, this is from Ashley B., on regularly testing our teachers? No, that would be on, if we had an outbreak at a school, we would have to work with the Virginia Department of Health to determine who needed to be tested. Eric Busey, the health screening does not assess if any fever-reducing medications may have influenced the temperature check. Please consider adding a question or disclaimer regarding medication. Yes, we can take a look at that. Jessica Flesher, please read publicly. If we are under a pandemic, why would we have to forfeit our sick days as teachers and staff? Well, I've covered that a while ago. If you're quarantined but not sick, we will try to work it out for you to still be able to deliver instruction from home virtually, and the substitute provide the supervision for kids. And there is additional sick leave that is provided through the what is it again, Families First Act. So we will work with teachers to try to work that out, but there's no guarantee that at some point, if you're out for an extended period of time, that you won't have to start using sick leave. Ian Ness, when it comes to the health screening process, what would be considered the designated isolation area? Would the child be in the area by themselves? That area would be, it's going to differ from school to school. Principals are working out the procedures for that. And they may be sitting in the area by themselves, but they're not going to be off in, a corner of the room where there's no other people around. Each school is going to try to come up with an area. I would imagine it'll be as in close proximity to the nurse's office as it can be. Amanda O'Reilly, first, thank you all for what you're doing. This is difficult and there's no easy solution. I'm curious how pre-K at elementary schools will look this upcoming school year. I imagine, and I think Candy is she's still here. Yes, it will be an adventure, as it always is with, it will require a lot of thinking on the run and just responding to situations as they arise. But we think we can still have a really successful school year, even given the guidelines that are in place. And, Mr. Guthrie spoke earlier about our graduation, and I gave that as my example when I was presenting this to some of the faculty and staff, that I just thought it was going to be the worst thing in the world to have to do a drive-by graduation, and it turned out it was one of the best experiences I've had since I've been here. So it's really what you make of it, and we'll just have to figure our way through this. I think our plan is flexible enough that we can change it when we know something is not working, and we will do what we can to try to make the year a positive experience for our students. And I can't answer your question specifically, but just know that we have great pre-K teachers as well as all other areas of instruction, but we have really great pre-K teachers who love being around their kids, and they will make it fun, and the kids will learn and have a good time, and it should still be a very memorable and meaningful year. Our students are allowed to pack a lunch. Yes, they would still be allowed to pack a lunch. In NES, how soon will we be notified on which day of the week our child will be attending? Will there be a chance to meet the child's teacher before school starts? Under phase 2, we probably still can do the open houses, but people may have to be scheduled in at specific times so we can keep the overall number below 250. We haven't worked out the details yet of which students will be in on which day, but principals have been taking a look at that, and I imagine that can come out relatively quickly now that the plan is approved. Lauren Whited, will elementary students who are full virtual need to turn in physical work, gluing, coloring, writing letters like the journals last year? Probably not. Yeah, I imagine that if they are full virtual, then all work would be turned in virtually. If there's a need, if there's a certain project that has to be done, then we can work it out with those families as to how to get those turned in to the teacher. In NES, what will be the protocol once children are dropped off for school and has passed the health screening? Would they be held in the gym together like they have done in the past? No, our plan is that students will report directly to their classroom where they will be starting their day. If they test positive in the screening, then the nurse would be called and they would be put in the isolation area until the parent could come and pick them up. And I believe that is it. So thank you all who posed questions, and we appreciate it, and don't hesitate to give us feedback as we go through this, because like I said earlier, we're all feeling our way through new territory, and it's going to be a challenge for all of us. But as Mr. Hurst said, I do think we have a really good plan. I appreciate all the people who were on the task force and all the people who've helped us vet this plan. All in all, we've had probably about 400 people involved in the development of this plan, through developing it, through vetting it, in presentations with almost all of our faculty and staff, listening to it, and many of them providing feedback. So there were no options that people just loved. Nobody liked having to do this, but I think we have come up with a plan that's workable. It's what's best for kids to try to get them back in as much as possible. We would shoot for 5 days a week, but transportation would not allow for that. Because at this point, because of the way that students can only be transported in one per seat, it would just not be feasible. We're having to increase bus driver hours on the days that they're in right now to make this work. So it would be impossible to do that for 5 days in a week under the way our contracts have been developed. But hopefully at some point the bus restrictions, hopefully it will be passing, COVID will be passing through, and the bus restrictions will ease up enough that we can go back to all regular routes and putting 2 kids in a seat, even if we'll have to continue with mitigation strategies. But we'll stay on top of it, and we'll try to communicate as frequently and transparently as we can as we make changes to this plan.
It was a marathon.